Okay, here's another video aimed at the beginning sawyers. You old guys have been at this for a while. You're going to know what I'm talking about here. It is inevitable when you're sawing long lumber that sooner or later you're going to get something with a nice big butt flange onto it, like this guy here. Now, that log is probably 24 or 26 inches on that end, and it's coming down to probably 16, 18 inches on this end. Now, with these manual mills, maybe the same way with some of the other mills too, everybody sooner or later is going to run into an issue where you get a log, you see this guy's got a little bit of a sweep on the end, and you notice how close he is to this runner for the carriage on this side up here at the top of the log. Now, sooner or later, if you saw enough lumber, you're going to get in a situation where you get your carriage about 2/3 the way through your log and you're jammed. Your feed rollers on the side are fetched up against your log. You can't go ahead with your carriage. You try running it back, your blade pops off the guide rollers. You know the old story if you've ever done it for any length of time. So here's a little tip of what I do to avoid this. Now, this log here, it's 16 foot, it's a white pine. It's laid for almost a year. I should have sawed this earlier. The bark has all slipped off it. But here's something that I do to take care of this situation. What I want to achieve on this log is I want to get that end down there, the small end, pretty much the same size as what I wind up with the, or I want the butt end to come to the same diameter roughly as the top end. So what you can see, what I've done here, I started in this flange, which is, as you can see, fairly substantial. Going up, the taper's quite heavy to right about where I finished sawing right there. What I'd done was just took what I call a half cut off. Now, I took a chunk of slab. You can see it laying there on the ground. It's probably 3.5, 4 inches thick. Tapers right up short. So what I'm going to do, now I've taken that first cut off there. I've used the winch with the, actually it's an old swamp hook, hooked into the log to pull it up around there because I'm working alone tonight. And now I'll start and take a second cut. I'll come down here on this end about 3.5 inches again, and I'm just going to saw up until I come out of the wood, right about where that cable is, where my winch is sitting. Then I'm going to rotate the log 90 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing a third time, and then by the time I get to that bottom, I'm going to be free and clear. I'm going to have reduced the diameter of this end of the log down to roughly what the top of that log is. From that point on, I can center the log on the bunks here. I can cut without any worry of my carriage hanging up down on that end, because see what's happening with these big logs when you've got this quite a severe flange on the end. If you have the flange of your log, the swelled part, against this post down here at this end, by the time you get down 16 feet, because of the angle from your flange going down through, it sets the far end of your log, the top of your log, it sets it over past your carriage track. And that's what happens. That's what makes your saw bind up and fetch up. And then when you get traveling down through, you'll have these rollers. This roller on this side here is where the side where your blade is feeding across this way. This roller here will bind up on the side of that log. So that's just a quick and simple way, something I had to learn through trial and error and doing it the wrong way too many times, but this is a quick and easy way to solve a problem there. Make your day of sawing a little bit easier on big lumber, because the last thing you need when you're handling logs this size is any issues with a saw with your carriage hanging up down in this end, and then you've got to get the chainsaw out and start whittling, and that's not something you want to do. You can see right there, that's That's not exaggerated in any way, but there is just the taper. That's what's going on. You can see the top of that log is over too close to that track for the carriage and the guide roller to pass through. So we're just going to continue here. We're going to take 2 more passes off of this log. We're going to get her into the shape that we want it. This is quite similar to the hook that Norwood sends with her winches. Unfortunately, mine is buried somewhere and I have no clue where it is. This was an old swamp hook years ago. At some point along the way, I might even do a video and show how this is done. But years ago, the reason for this big ring on here, that hook would have been used for piling logs. Swamp hook, they called it, just for when they were swamping roads. And they would just set up, rather than setting up a yard of logs, you could throw up a pile, use a power buckle. You fed the loop of the power buckle up through here and back, and when your log came up on the pile as far as this here, this would kick up, and your log was stopped on the pile. Anyway, at some point I went along the way, like I say, I'll do a video showing how a swamp hook was used. I do have a video showing how logs were piled with a power buckle, but not with the swamp hook. Well, after that little preamble off into nowhere, hopefully this is something that'll help you guys along that are just learning out the ins and outs of running a sawmill. Have a good one.